Assalamualaikum and hello student. It's me, Madam Pau. Let's continue our series of learning unit number 4, which is evolution. So for today's subtopic is population growth. Learning objective for today's lecture is number 1, student must be able to define what is population and what is population growth. Next, student must be also able to briefly explain the relationship between population growth to evolution, how they grow over time, and when do a population growth actually will lead to evolution. What is meant by population? Okay, it is referring to an organism which belong to the same species, living on the same geographical area, and they also must have the capability of producing offspring, which means they can interbreed between any pairs towards each other. While for population growth is related to changes that occur in a population over time. Okay, we can also quantify it as the change in the number of individuals of any species in a population using per unit time measurement. Okay, class, why we studying population growth? Okay, what makes studying it so important? It is because this knowledge are giving so many advantages and opportunities, especially to scientists, for them to make better prediction about what will happen in the future related to biodiversity conservation. Okay, for example, the declining of population of polar bear that will probably risk for extinction. Okay, this knowledge also giving space for them to actually know what can cause changes in population, may it be in sizes and growth rate. For example, population of salmon that declining, they overfish by humans, or the salmon habitats disappear, or maybe the temperature of ocean. So all those things, okay, are studied by the scientists, okay, for them to actually know, okay, the factors that affect the population. And also knowledge of population growth give scientists idea on how actually organisms interact with each other and with their environment, okay, especially human population towards potential impacts of maybe climate change or environmental factors. There are two examples of graph to represent the rate of changes in the size of a population over time. The first one is exponential growth, whereby it describes theoretical populations that increase in numbers without any limits. The best example to use this kind of models in organisms is seen in bacteria. We know that bacteria are prokaryotes that reproduce rapidly by binary fission. If, let's say, we put 500 bacteria in a large flask with abundant nutrients, surely the number of bacteria will double. Although it's quite impossible to solely represent the real condition of world because usually sources are limited. But this is just to show you all that the important concept for this growth is that the growth rate itself, or the number of organisms added in each reproductive generation, is increasing, resulted J-shaped growth curve when plotted over time. Second model, the logistic growth, introduce limits to reproductive growth that become more intense as the population size increases. The growth rate gets smaller as it approaches the maximum imposed by limited resources in the environment that we call as carrying capacity. Okay, class, how is population growth relates to evolution? We know that evolution acts on population, not individual. It can be defined through a changes that undergone by a group of a species. Evolution also involved in the changes of the genetic makeup of the population over time. This we will learn further detail by tomorrow's session. So the relationship between these two are via these following criteria. The first one is the potential for a particular species to increase its number. And second, also related to the supply of resources, must be finite required for life. The third one is, it is also referring to better offspring selected to survive, and plus genetic variability of offspring are based on mutation or gene combination. For example, human population, they can alter or execute evolve in order for them to expand their population, maybe by changing their environment or looking for another sources of food. For this part, Charles Darwin had suggested a mechanism for evolution known as natural selection, which causes populations to become adapted or increasingly well suited to their environments over time. So this mechanism basically explain how population could evolve by undergoing modification, and this concept was based on several key observation. Okay, each of organism are capable to produce more offspring than their environment can support. They struggle to survive. The variation of traits occur within species. Okay, thus competition for limited resource in each generation. So many characteristics that can be inherited and passed from parents to offspring. This will definitely help them to survive and reproduce, because the traits will tend to become more common in the next generation. This is the component that causing a population to grow in number. The first one is of course surplus of resources, may it be in food, intake, and environment, habitat especially. And then the second one is law in competition, next law predation, and then followed by random mating, and last but not least high species fitness, the thing that we refer to a species in a population that can survive and also can be reproduced. And then what happen if or when the population growth increase? Absolutely, more spaces and resources are needed due to the increasing number of a population, and then surely the competition will also increase. Thus, only the individuals with higher fitness will survive, and also the advantageous traits that only can be passed down from generation to the next generation. And usually the individual with low fitness will move away from the area. They will try to colonize new area, that they will try to adapt to the new surrounding, new habitat or environment, and finally they will develop different or even new advantageous trait that will differ genetically from their old population. And then when they meet again with the original population, they cannot interbreed. When do a population growth will lead to evolution? As the population keep ongoing up its number resulted from increased birth rate and at the same time decrease in death rate, the population will soon exceed the natural resources, and this is what we call as overpopulation. So through this event, definitely each of the organisms are struggling to survive and competing with each other. Okay, for example, overpopulation of human, okay, that will definitely lead to over exploitation of resources and accelerated ecological interaction among the faunas, such as competition, predation. This is actually can push the organism towards adaptive radiation, where they evolve rapidly that eventually lead to formation of new form. Another example is the overpopulation of rabbits seen in Australia. It caused destroyed farmers' crops and leading to poor yield. Not just that, the rabbit overpopulation also causing a loss of native plant species as well as the removal of precious topsoil due to erosion. So how human overcome the overpopulation of rabbit in Australia? They using several different methods like poison, hunting, okay, a rabbit-proof cat, and then the introduction of predators. But all of that methods are fail until the scientists release the myxoma virus into the rabbit population. So this myxoma virus is actually the one that kill a rabbit specific virus that successfully reduced the rabbit population.